Hey Chickadees! Welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be going over the books I read in January. A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn follows a recently adulted orphan and renowned lepidopterist named Veronica Speedwell, put under the protection of taxidermist/historian Stoker, after his friend, a baron named Maximilian, rescued her from being abducted. A couple of days later, the baron is murdered. Together, Veronica and Stoker must solve the mystery behind his death, opening the door to the truth behind Veronica's parentage. To be honest, I've been in a bit of a reading slump for the past few months or so. I could just feel myself reading rather than picturing the book in my head, if that makes sense. It actually started to give me a little imposter syndrome. Like, was I actually reading for fun, or was I just reading to meet a quota for a video I made up in my head? But as soon as I read that first page, I was hooked, and felt the joy of reading I was missing for a while. I could just feel myself getting lost in the plot and characters again, and I didn't want to put the book down. It kind of felt like watching a new show you instantly become obsessed with and you didn't want the ride to be over. And I know I talk a lot about loving the banter between characters, but Veronica and Stoker are just on another level. She's not ashamed to be vulgar and blatantly honest with him. And even though it caused him to get flustered at times, Stoker's also not afraid to dish it back out to her twofold. Because they're scientists that specialize in attention to detail and stuff like that, they are very smart and perceptive amateur sleuths as well. Their dynamic is just everything, and it made me want to pick up the second book as soon as possible. 5 out of 5 stars. One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig begins with describing a dangerous infection that seemingly took the Kingdom of Blunder by storm, leaving their woods in constant fog, and those infected dying or alive with magical abilities, and the Kingdom's guard on their tail. These people are called the Fevered, and our main girl Elspeth is one of them. With the ability to see cards that grant abilities to the people who wield them, and an evil companion in her head she calls the Nightmare, she must lay low and live with her secondary relatives near the woods. When invited to join her primary family at the Kingdom's big equinox party, she gets caught by the captain of the guard, Raven. But instead of exposing her, he decides to cut a deal. If she agrees to join their gang of highwaymen, and helping them steal all of the Providence cards back, they can cure her and the Kingdom of the Fever once and for all. However, with the Nightmare gnawing at her thoughts and draining her of her strength, it's only a matter of time before he takes over, leaving her in darkness. At the time, my sister was doing her first Dark Urge run in Baldur's Gate 3, so I kind of wanted to read something with that vibe. And when I found this book had a shadowy monster possessing the main character's head, I just had to read it. While I did sometimes enjoy the dynamic between Elspeth and the Nightmare, I was a bit surprised to find it was more of a symbiotic relationship, kind of like Eddie and Venom, where she would give and he would take when she allowed it, rather than having these urges to hurt others. I also wished I felt more for the characters. While I like the morally grayness of the Nightmare and his commentary, I didn't feel much for the betrayal when Elspeth's cousin, Ione, became the princess betrothed, nor did I really buy the romance between Elspeth and Raven. They tried to do the whole fake dating trope so no one would get suspicious when they started working together, but can it really be called fake dating if your characters are into each other from the get-go? Throughout the first half, there were multiple times when I was wondering why this book was so popular, because, to be honest, it kind of dragged a bit. As soon as we reached that third part, I was locked in and simply flying through it to see what would happen next. In the end, I could see where the hype was coming from, and it left me wanting to see what would happen in the sequel. 3.75 out of 5 stars. Lastly, I read A Perilous Undertaking, the second book in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series. This one followed a more standard murder mystery. Veronica is asked by a Lady Sunridge to save famous painter Miles Ramsworth from death row for killing his mistress, Artemisia. This mystery primarily takes place in a Bohemian arts colony, where Veronica and Stoker interview and cull the truth from characters of the mansion. Kinda like playing a game of Clue. I was kinda disappointed by how predictable the murderer was this time around, and though I still loved when Veronica and Stoker were on page together, I felt like we got less of them this time around with the wider cast of characters to focus on. Overall, I gave this a 3.75 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz, and I'll see you when I see you. Take care, Chickadees.